Rabbi Feldman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Meg. It's good to see you. Shana Tova.
You
Uh,
too.
Thank you for helping us with this. We are beginning a new project at the temple called Jewish Journeys. And we are very fortunate to have Meg Coleman and Meg's family, the Sykes family, as a part of our congregational family. And we decided to have some time to talk with a number of members of our congregation about their own stories, their own journey, their connections to Judaism, their connections to the temple. So Meg, tell me about the conversations you had.
Oh, they were so wonderful. I had a great chance to talk to Chucky Holstein, Steve Belinsky, and Rebecca Opedisano, affectionately known as Miss Rebecca, because she was my son's music teacher. But, they are all such wonderful, bright lights in our congregation. They all come from, different backgrounds. They have different stories and different connections to Temple Concord and to the Jewish community. And each conversation was fascinating. It was so interesting to learn about their history and their connection to the temple and why Judaism has played such an important role in their lives. And really what I found from all of them is that it has to do with the people, right? It has to do with their connection to all the different people in the congregation. And really the theme that I saw through all these different conversations, Rabbi, was, the warmth that they felt from the congregation and the support and the love that they felt from all the people at Temple Concord.
That's beautiful. Uh, I think about the Holsteins every year at this time of year, actually, because the podium that the cantor and I used for the high holidays was carved by the Holstein family and crafted especially for the Bima. And so this year we're both sort of missing standing at that Holstein podium and the grandeur and the comfort that that podium gives us, and I know gives to everybody who walks into that sanctuary. So I'm really glad that the Holstein family, in the form of Chucky, is able to be a part of all of this.
Yeah, and she's such a lovely woman. We want to show you a bit of our conversation from just a short time ago.
Great, thanks.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you. I'm sorry that Alex was unable to join us. How's he doing today?
He's doing all right. He prefers me talking about his experience with Temple Concord, which is vast.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd like to talk a little bit about my Jewish experience.
Exactly.
And how
So let's go back a little bit in time. Take me back to your childhood and your Jewish experience growing up.
Well, it's very interesting. I was the youngest of 6 children of immigrants. My father was from Russia, from Belinsky, which was on the Volga River. We've identified his transportation to the United States. He was 14 years old with a quarter in his pocket.
Wow.
He was taken immediately off the boat when he arrived at Ellis Island and transferred to Ithaca, New York, which is interesting. At the age of 14, he had to go to work, and all he knew about work was to paint houses and do a little repair work in people's homes. And he used to kid us that he didn't speak English, not a word of it. He spoke Yiddish and he read Hebrew, but that was about it. He said he could speak Greek before he could speak English. And, we kids would wonder, this guy, our father, speaking Greek? And he said, sure, Phi Beta Kappa, Kappa Kappa Phi. So he did all the fraternity houses at Cornell. Would tease us about it. But he was very, very Orthodox, as was my mother. They met in Rochester. I lived in Rochester as a child. Again, I was the youngest of 6. There were 2 boys and 4 girls. In those days, girls weren't given much of a Jewish or Hebrew education. Yes, we learned to cook kosher. We learned what was kosher and how to keep a household and raise a family, but very little else that related to Judaism. My 2 brothers, on the other hand, at the age of 16, were sent off to yeshiva in New York, Chicago, I think Baltimore, and they lived there as if it were their boarding school, and both of them became rabbis. So only my oldest brother practiced as a rabbi. He called himself a modern Orthodox rabbi. I think there is something interesting about his and his background as well. He always felt that as a rabbi, he needed to get his PhD in psychology because he said he was working with families. Families had different issues, and he would like to be able to help them, maybe in the field of social work, but he always felt psychology was important. And just before he died at the age of 39, he did get his PhD in psychology, and too bad he wasn't able to use it. In those days, as I said, girls were not trained in Hebrew, so obviously I was not bar mitzvah. When I went to shul, I had to sit with the women in the back of the shul or upstairs. The one thing I remember most vividly about my youth that really started me on the volunteer level was that every Friday night, my father would bring home a stranger from services. These strangers, I think, were called Mashalochim. They were actually fundraisers for the yeshivas so that they could afford to have these young men be trained to be Orthodox rabbis. So every Friday night, I would lust for the leg of the chicken, and our guest would always get it first. So that was my first volunteer effort. And before they left, after Shabbos, we always had to give them the few pennies that we had saved during the week. So one learns, I think, by at-home experiences about volunteerism. You know, I also had to give them my bed. So I slept on the floor of my parents' bedroom every weekend. Yeah. So we did volunteer work in big way.
And how did that spirit of volunteerism, Chucky, sort of carry you through your adulthood?
It was easy because I had done it since childhood. I mean, it was sort of a natural thing to volunteer, to give of yourself as much as you could. We also, because these were refugees who were escaping bad czars in Russia, my father's town burned down, just like Fiddler on the Roof's town burned down. They taught us, all six of us, that we really had to give back to this country, that we should feel wonderful and safe in this country, that they're giving us an opportunity to practice our religion as we wished in this country. I don't know today if that's equally true, but certainly when they came here, they had the freedoms that they didn't have in Russia. And we were taught from the get-go. I mean, be grateful you're here, be grateful for what you have, and give back to others. And that's how my volunteer experience started.
Talk a little bit about the pantry. I know that's been important to you.
I haven't really worked at the pantry that much, but there are other things I've done at Temple Concord that were very important to me. And I think I'd like to talk a little bit about Alex's and my getting together. We were fixed up.
Yes, we were fixed up. That story.
There was a Jewish fraternity at the Nottingham High School called the Aronians, started by Aaron Rose, who was the executive director of the JCC, and a brother fraternity in Rochester called the Adelphians. And we were fixed up. I was 15, he was 16. And that was the beginning and the end. Never saw anybody else, and he never did either. We got married after I finished college. I promised my parents I would finish college. At any rate, he taught me about Reform Judaism. I had no idea that there were other branches of Judaism because we were so instilled in our orthodoxy. And he began to tell me about some of the things in Reform Judaism I kind of liked. I mean, it was a lot more free about your ability to practice the religion. So when I moved to Syracuse, I immediately got involved. There's a family history at Temple Concord, and so my first experience in volunteering in Syracuse was really at Temple Concord.
And what were some of the activities that you got involved, that you and Alex got involved in?
Well, I got involved in sisterhood right away, and I think I became secretary of sisterhood that went on for years and years and years. I also felt very strongly that other community organizations should get to know Temple Concord. And so any other organization that I was involved with, I always tried to arrange at least one of their events or one of their meetings at Temple Concord to show that we're strongly interfaith oriented and to show off the temple, actually. To go back to the history, Alex's grandfather, Adolf, was on the building committee of Temple Concord. He also, as a woodworker, carved all of the carvings on the bima,
Wow.
which I hope you can take a look at, and maybe you can insert the carvings into this little talk that we're having, because they're absolutely beautiful.
They are beautiful.
But there's one thing I want people to do at Temple. On the way to the stairs to the bima are two armchairs, and the arms are lions' heads. These chairs used to be in my in-laws' home. But every time anyone in our family passes those chairs, we brush the head of the lion on each arm. And here's a little secret for you, the kids especially. If you poke your finger in the hole, you've got your finger in a lion's mouth. So try it sometime. It's kind of fun. But the history of the family is really what brought us into the congregation. And I have something I'd love to show everybody. I have the Union Prayer Book. I know it's backwards. The Union Prayer Book from 1925. By the way, that was the year I was born. And it's already a revised edition in 1925. And it's the book that Alex's parents used for services. And I must say that I don't think they went to a lot of services, although they certainly were high holy day goers. But they were very interested in the maintenance of the congregation. And they were very concerned about the preservation of Judaism in Syracuse, New York. A little known story is one of the Orthodox congregations was having a lot of trouble management, and they were going broke. And my father-in-law, raised a Reformed Jew and active in the Reformed synagogue, took them under his wing and restored their management and helped them raise money so that they were able to survive at least another 10 or 15 years. Little known Syracuse story. So that's the family I married into. So there was no way I could not be involved in community. It just kind of sucked me in.
Yeah, and so a little bit about the preservation, Chucky, of the Jewish community and the history here in Temple Concord. Certainly, we are at a crossroads, right? The temple is likely going to be sold here, and we'll be moving into a new home. What are your thoughts about that as we sort of pave the way into a new future for Temple Concord?
Well, at one point, Alex was interviewed, and in his interview, he said his passion was to grow the family at Temple Concord and to preserve, and the word preserve is very important here, the temple, which is almost 100 years old. Yeah. And the rabbi very wisely spoke to him when things were in motion about the sale. And I recall Alex saying that if the sanctuary could be preserved, he would go along with, the sale.
Yeah.
But very important, and I think the Preservation Society of Onondaga County has the same feeling, that the sanctuary needs to be preserved in its current form. It can be used for a variety of things, but the preservation of the sanctuary is important to Alex, and I would say important to me as well.
Yeah, it is the most beautiful part of that building.
It really is. And actually, again, another piece of Holstein history, the organ was donated by Alex's uncle David, who at one time was president of the congregation. So another piece of Holstein at Temple Concord.
Do you have
Yeah.
a message, Chucky, perhaps for younger families as they begin their own journey with Temple Concord and raising their own children with those Jewish values?
Well, for one thing, I feel really gratified that young girls can be bat mitzvah and that they can read from the Torah. Nothing pleases me more than seeing young women, because I literally could not be. Girls were just not treated equally to boys as I was growing up. So this has to be preserved, and I think to give the female equal time as the male, both in the reading of the services, in leading a Jewish life, and so on. I'm strongly Jewish. I believe in my Judaism. I certainly taught Sunday schools at Temple Concord for a while. Then I substituted. I really enjoyed, actually, the Union Prayer Book, I have to admit. It wasn't so much Hebrew. And I said earlier, I didn't read Hebrew. And I don't know many of the songs, although I've tried to learn them. They don't have the same meaning for me as some of the prayers in English. So for young families growing up, I think they need to decide how much of the services will be in the language of the nation that they live in. I recall a couple of the United Nations conferences for women that I attended in Nairobi and Beijing. And the Jewish women from all over the world got together for Friday night and Sabbath services. It was an incredible experience, I must admit. But our common denominator was Hebrew, and there were us American women, most of us unable to read Hebrew, left out. So there are two things. One is give girls the opportunity and the invitation to be bat mitzvah and to be able to read from Torah, which I love seeing at the High Holy Days. I guess that's my biggest wish for young families: treat the kids equally.
And Chucky, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you.
I was just going to say, and do you have a special prayer in that Union Prayer Book that you'd like to leave us with too?
Yes, but I also have one thing about the old time services that I was told about, the High Holy Day services. My father-in-law owned this prayer book, and I see under the cover that he's got certain pages that he referred to, and I assume those were the pages that as he sat on the bima, he was to read from the bima. But in those days, anyone who sat on the bima had to be fully dressed. They were dressed in a tuxedo or a tie, and one more item. I'm going to show it.
Okay.
They all had to wear their high hats. Believe it or not. So you would see this person reading from their prayer book with their full dress, tuxedos and all, and their high hats. And this is my husband's grandfather's high hat, which our kids love to wear when they come around.
How nice.
Including the great grandkids. Yeah. So yes, I do. I'd love to close with a prayer, actually.
Please do.
Let me show it to you. In this 1925 Union Prayer Book, I don't know if you can see it and read it backwards, but instead of the rabbi or the reader, it's called minister. I think that was fascinating to me. Not during my lifetime, but evidently before I became a Reformed Jew, the rabbi was called a minister.
Interesting.
Okay. My favorite prayer, which is said even to today, but I think it has more relevance right now than ever before, and it's the peace prayer. It's grant us peace, thy most precious gift, O thou eternal source of peace, and enable Israel to be a messenger of peace into the peoples of the earth. That means all the peoples of the earth, not just some. Bless our country that may ever be a stronghold of peace, and the advocate of peace and the Council of Nations. May contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness within its homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship between all inhabitants of our land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of thy name hallow every home and every heart. Inscribe us in the book of life, and grant unto us a year of prosperity and joy. Praised be thou, O Lord, giver of peace.
That's beautiful.
And we say it today. I don't know that it had as much meaning to me earlier on as it does right now. And
Yeah.
you take the words apart.
And you know, you think about the pandemic and everything that folks have gone through, and I think that prayer
right.
really resonates, right, in terms of good health, prosperity, joy for the new year. I think all of us could use a little bit of that.
And respect for all the peoples
Yeah.
of all the lands.
Absolutely.
It's not just
Thank you
us
so much
Jews.
for talking to us today.
You're welcome, and I wish everybody a Lashana Tova.
Thank you. Lashana Tova. Happy New Year to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Wow, Chucky is something else. Chucky is a role model in like 1,000 different ways for me and for my wife. We're just blessed to have her as a part of our congregation and our family and our community.
Yeah, you know, I have to tell you, it was a privilege and such a pleasure and such an honor to have that time to talk to her.
I can't imagine what Syracuse would have been like without somebody like Chucky Holstein driving this community forward. So I know you had a conversation with Chucky. Who else did you speak with?
So Steve Belinsky, who is another wonderful, just fantastic member. He has one of the biggest hearts, I think, of anyone that I've ever met. He is so kind, he's so caring, he's so loving of his community, of the Jewish community, of his family. We talked a lot about his wife, who he's been caring for as she deals with a really difficult illness. But obviously just a wonderful family man who, you know, I think for him, Judaism has played such an important role in helping him get through some pretty challenging times.
Is it true that he got a dinner out of the conversation with you?
He did. He got some brisket and noodle kugel, my famous recipe, which I'll have to drop off at your doorstep here soon.
Well, so let's hear Steve and hear all about it.
Well, good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Megan.
So let's talk a little bit about your Jewish history. Can you take me back in time?
Yes, I can. Well, I was born in Syracuse, and my parents and sister, our family, belonged to Temple Beth Israel, which was down on Irving Avenue, and behind us was Temple Adeth, and a couple blocks away was Temple Concord. So all three temples, and it was a conservative temple. And we had two amazing teachers. One was Rabbi Epstein, who the Hebrew high school is named after, and he was a wonderful man. And equally terrific was our Hebrew school teacher, Sidney Cohen, who was an elementary teacher. And he actually had our entire class conduct, and our services were like 2.5, 3 hours, conduct the entire service on a Saturday morning for our bar mitzvah. And we really practiced by going to junior congregation every Saturday morning, and we took turns in conducting the service. So I felt very blessed to have a background like that, and my parents were fairly observant. But the main influence in my life in terms of religion was my mother's father, Morris Carlson. And he went to what is now Sherry Torah. It was Young Israel. It was the Orthodox temple. And because it was him, I went to the temple. I enjoyed so much being with him. And he was very proud to be with me, and I really knew it. And we had the greatest relationship. So I went probably for him as much as anything, and I got a lot out of it. And
How old were you at the time, Steve, that you remember going to these services with your grandfather?
15 through 18. He died when I was just entering college. Suddenly, he never was sick a day in his life, I don't think. But he was a proud man, and when I walked back from the temple with him, I remember his head held high and him introducing me to anybody and everybody on the way back. And it was something I never forgot. Those great moments in the synagogue, they were happy moments for me. And years later, I met my wife, who was not Jewish, and she converted with Rabbi Levy, and I did enjoy the services. And presently, and I mean, I think as services, years went on, our services became more and more in Hebrew, with Canterberg, and now certainly with Cantor Eglash, and her husband Joe. And I totally love the services. And I recently walked back into the Orthodox temple for a baby naming, and I saw the men and women sitting separately, and I thought, you know, I really am a Reformed Jew now. And it felt so good. And I love our rabbi and our cantor and the services. And truthfully, the whole congregation. They've been so supportive during my wife's illness. I mean, I get calls from so many people.
Can you talk to us, Steve, for those who are not familiar with your situation and your wife's situation? Give us a little bit of background about her illness, how she's doing now, and how the Jewish community and the temple in particular has helped sort of wrap their arms around you during this time.
About 4 years ago, noticed that there was something failing in her voice. She was sort of having a hard time talking. She was talking, but the doctors were analyzing it as acid reflux. And I called up our main medical doctor and I said, they're not even close. There's something more going on. So he sent me and my wife to Strong Memorial in Rochester, and they diagnosed her with ALS.
Wow.
And by then her voice was completely gone. So she hasn't spoken in about 3 years. And she's a very, very strong woman. And she handles something that I don't think I could have handled at all.
Yeah, most people probably couldn't.
With grace. She has a cell phone that talks. Now they have cell phones that talk in the person's voice.
Incredible.
If they record things before they lose it, that voice will be used whenever they say something. But she was able to drive, she was able to walk around, she was able to cook. But eventually she couldn't drive, and her walking got more difficult, and she began to use a walker. And she stopped doing the stairs, and within 4 weeks after stopping doing the stairs, she couldn't walk at all. So now she is completely bedridden, and she still keeps her spirits up. She can't come in our computer room, but I put the computer on loud, and she is at every service with me. And she was president of Sisterhood and took active roles on so many committees at Temple, and won awards at Temple for her service. So in spite of all the things, we are enjoying each moment that we can. And we're watching TV shows like Downton Abbey and loving it. And we completed all 6 seasons. And we listen to music together, and we're not letting any day pass without spending quality time together. So,
is this something that has tested your faith, Steve? Certainly, it's an incredible challenge for somebody to live through.
Yeah, it has tested it. It's, you know, you always, or you can say why. I mean, why would something like that happen? But I grew up feeling good being in the temple.
Mm.
And it's a place I go back to for relief, for saying prayers. So it does help me. Yeah, I do question a lot of times why such a good person
Wow,
has
Chucky is
something
something
happen to
else.
them like that. But
And
Chucky is a
and
role
talk to us a
model in
little
like
bit
a
about how the
thousand
temple
different ways
community
for
has
me and
helped
for
to
my
come
wife.
together to support you,
We're
because
just blessed to have her
this
as
is
a
certainly
part
a
of
really
our
challenging time
congregation and
for
our
your
family and our
family.
community.
But
Yeah,
there's a
you know, I have to
wonderful
tell you,
you, it was a community out there
such a
at Temple
pleasure and such an
Concord that I
honor
know has been really
to have that
supportive
time
for
to
you.
talk to her.
I can't imagine
well, the
Syracuse,
rabbi and
what Syracuse
cantor
would have been like without
call
somebody
all
like
the
Chucky
time,
Holstein
Yeah.
driving this community
and
forward.
so many members call,
So I know you had a conversation with Chucky. Who else did you
and
speak with?
members
So
have
Steve Belinsky,
done
who
errands
is
for us.
another
They've
wonderful, just
brought
fantastic
dinners that
member.
they made
He
for us.
has
They've
one of the
bought
biggest
dinners
hearts, I
for
think,
us.
of anyone that
They
I've ever met.
call
He is
all
so
the
kind.
time
He's so
and
caring. He's so
see
loving
how
of
we're
his
doing.
community, of the
And
Jewish community,
we're
of
not
his
without
family. We
people
talked a lot
calling and
about his
caring
wife, who he's been caring
at
for,
all.
as she
And
deals
our
with a
kids,
really
our
difficult
daughter moved home
illness.
for a year.
But obviously, just
She's
a
back in
wonderful
Brooklyn.
family
Our
man
son has been home
who,
for
you know, I
over
think
a
for
year.
him, Judaism has played such
And
an important role in
the
helping
issue we
him
have
get
now
through some pretty challenging
is when she's
times.
in bed,
Is it true that he got a dinner out of the
she has to
conversation
sit
with
up.
you?
She can't breathe lying
He
down.
did. He got some
Wow.
brisket and
So if
noodle
she
koma, my
starts to
famous
scooch
recipe, which
down a little bit,
I'll have to drop off at
we
your
have to lift her
doorstep
up.
here soon.
I
Well,
can't
so
lift
let's
her
hear Steve
myself.
and hear all about it.
It's like dead weight, and I need somebody to help. So my son was helping, but he recently went back and is working some hours. So we have about 40 hours of nursing help, and they help with the lift. They are actually able to give her a bath, change the sheets, all with her in bed.
Wow. That is remarkable.
Yeah, and the love that they're giving her, I mean, I can't help but really appreciate the people that are helping take care of her. I
And I
mean,
can't help but think, Steve, about the parallels here of the community also helping to lift you all up, your family, and support you during this time.
yeah, our families, the Temple family and our family has been incredible. My sister and sister-in-law, my cousins, just lost my uncle of 90, almost 99, and he was always calling.
Mm.
And he was actually doing aerobics at 98. So,
Wow, that's a good life, a life well lived.
yeah, really.
Yeah.
So we've had tremendous support from people.
So talk about a little bit about your relationship now with Temple Concord, the families there, and what the Temple community means to you. Obviously, we're in a place now where there will be a transition. We'll be moving into our temporary home at some point within the next year, likely. But it's that Temple family and that core. You know, they keep saying it doesn't really matter where we're located. It's, you know, the fact that we have each other. Talk a little bit about what that all means to you.
Well, I was, well, we've been married for 48 years. So
Mazel tov.
thank you. I've been a member, my wife and I, for 48 years. And probably for 2/3 of those, I was on the board. And for a good percentage of that time, I was treasurer of the temple.
Mm.
So I was always active in that and chaired the dues committee and just really having an interest, feeling that interest worldwide and locally is in Judaism is not what it was. We're not doing what our parents and grandparents did, where the temple was the center of activity. And I think it should be more the center of activity. I think we have great clergy, and I think it's showing right now at a time of need how people rally around. We do have a regular group that comes every week, and some people come a decent amount of time also. And we have a very supportive group in our temple, a very kind group, very thoughtful to people of all races and religions. And it makes me very proud to be a member of Temple Concord.
And as we look ahead to the new year, can you tell us a little bit about maybe your hopes and dreams for the next year, certainly for you personally and for your family and for the Temple family as a whole?
Well, for my own family, I pray for help. We have had a lot of things go on. One of my nephew's wife at 42 had an 8-hour breast cancer operation.
Mm.
I mean, it was extensive. There was lots of cancer, and I'm praying for her. She's a beautiful, wonderful person. So I basically just pray for health. I pray that this pandemic ends. It's one thing that's very difficult for me and my family during this time is our relatives can't come over. I mean, everybody is separating, and at a time like this, to have relatives over would be, or members of Temple, or I happen to have, I'm blessed to have a lot of friends. We have a group from college of 7 guys who have gotten together 49 of the 50 years since we graduated with their wives. And they live in Los Angeles, Knoxville, Stamford, Connecticut, and Macon, Georgia. So I do have lots of support and friends, and I just hope everybody's healthy and can get together again.
Yeah, and for the Temple family as a whole, as we look ahead to this new year of transition?
Well, I think the Temple, once the vote was made to go with Temple Edith, everybody rallied around. And I think that was really terrific. And that just shows that people are feeling that Temple, the people, are the most important thing, not exactly where we're located.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the people that make the congregation. And we have a lot of very dedicated and wonderful people.
Steve, I wish you and your family a very happy, certainly healthy new year. You all will certainly be in my prayers, and I'll be dropping off some brisket and noodle kugel here soon, okay?
Thank you, and you're so appreciated. Thank you for all you do.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year too. Bye-bye.
Meg, you're right. Steve has a heart of gold. He is just one of these people who brings goodness wherever he goes.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And he claims that he loved my brisket and noodle kugel. I don't know whether he was just saying it,
He
but
did.
you know, he was very
he did. Steve tells the truth. He liked it.
So in addition to Chucky and Steve, I also had a chance to talk to Rebecca Obedisano, and she's a younger member of our congregation. She has 3 wonderful boys who have really taken such a keen interest in the temple, becoming madrahim and being part of their Jewish journey. And it was really fun to talk to her about kind of her life growing up in Judaism and how it sort of started to come full circle for her.
That's so cool. Her son Max actually read Torah beautifully this morning, and he's going to be part of our group performing Jonah this afternoon. So I'm glad we can hear from Rebecca in between and have sort of an Apedisano sandwich with all of this.
She is wonderful. So let's take a look at part of our interview. Well, hi, Miss Rebecca.
Hi, Megan. How are you?
Great. So, I affectionately know you as Miss Rebecca. You were a music teacher to all of my kids when they were babies. And so my oldest now is 10. So we go back many years.
Yes, we do. I've gotten to watch your family grow, and it's been so wonderful to not only get to see them in music classes when they were little, but now I get to see them at Temple Concord too. So
yeah, and you will always be known as Miss Rebecca in our household and to so many households across Central New York. So give everybody sort of a sense, if they're not familiar with your musical background and your business.
Sure. So I own a business. It's called Bluebird Music Together, and we have music and movement classes for young children all over the Syracuse area. So I am lucky enough to watch a lot of young families grow up and expose their children to music. Most of my classes are parent-child classes, so I get to know the children and the grown-ups, and try to foster their love of music making at a really early age. So
you have this very famous song, "Hello, Miss Rebecca," right?
So glad to see you. Yep.
Yours is better than mine. And so music has sort of always been part of your journey, and I know it's part of your Jewish journey as well. You are also the GON teacher at Temple Concord. How did that all come to be?
Yeah, so I have been teaching the GON program for just a few years now, maybe 3 years, I think. I think that Rabbi Feldman and Cantor Kari got word that I have a lot of experience with young children in the area, and said, you know, we really could use you. So they asked me to be a part of it, and I've had a really good time doing it. I was a little bit insecure at first. I thought, I don't know if I am a Sunday school teacher, you know, because so much of what I do is really focused on music, but because there is so much music in Judaism, it kind of worked out really well. So,
well, we have attended, my youngest and I have attended many of your GON programs. We love it. And we always enjoy hearing from you, you know, doing the songs and reading the stories. Snack time, I know, is always a favorite for all of the kids too.
Everybody loves snack time, yeah.
Let's take me back then, if you could, in your Jewish journey. You know, from your childhood, what do you recall about what was important to you and how that was part of your life?
You know, it's funny, like all the things that we just mentioned, the music, the snacks, the community, those are huge, you know, part of what I remember as my Jewish journey. I went to a temple in Schenectady, New York. So I grew up in the Albany area, and I went to Congregation Gates of Heaven, which is a Reformed synagogue in Schenectady. And I grew up with a wonderful community. My grandparents were members there, my cousins were members there, and I made a lot of friends in the area. And that's what I remember: singing, dancing, snacking, socializing, and you know, that musical part of it, I think, you know, shaped me as a person in a very, very big way. I mean, you know, singing all of the prayers and all of the familiar melodies over the years with my family was one of the things that I think shaped my love of music. My father was actually the youth group advisor in my my like teen Jewish youth group, and he played the guitar. And so it's so funny because I was actually just playing through this huge stack of papers with my son Max last night, actually. Lots of songs that we used to sing in the youth group because my dad passed along this songbook to me. And so that's, you know, a wonderful part of being a parent is you get to do all the things that, you know, you did as a child with your kids when they get a little bit older. My son Max is very much into music, and he plays the guitar and the piano and sings beautifully. And so we do a lot of music making together at home, and
that's wonderful.
And he's actually leading a lot of music classes at the Sunday school at Temple Concord now with a couple of his buddies. So the tradition continues.
Yes, the tradition continues. And I do recall from meeting you early on in one of our music classes through your program, I remember saying, you know, hey, I'm a member at Temple Concord, and I think that you were unaffiliated at that point. So what drew you to Temple Concord, and how did it become part of your life?
Yeah, great question. So I was unaffiliated with any temples when my kids were little. We didn't really find our place for many years, and we were kind of unsure about what we were going to do with our kids, to be honest with you. My husband is not Jewish, but loves everything about the Jewish culture and religion. But because his family, traditions are different than mine, we weren't really sure what to do with our kids. And it wasn't until we found Temple Concord that we really started to feel like, okay, this is where we want to be. This is how we want to raise our kids, and find those, family values.
And,
so,
and if my memory serves me correctly, didn't one of your sons say, Mom, I really want to become a bar mitzvah?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
We used to go to this little monthly program that was free, and it was run by a couple community members. And it was, just every month we would get together and talk about being Jewish and what that meant. And my oldest son, Ben, was like, well, if we're Jewish, then why don't we go to a temple? And I want to have a bar mitzvah and I want to learn Hebrew. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. So
and now you all are so involved. I mean, as you said, your sons have been really involved in the Sunday school program as well. So it seems like it's sort of all coming full circle for you, from your childhood to now your own children being so involved in the temple.
It's true. I'm really proud of all three of my kids. They've all been madrichim at the Sunday school. Ben was helping out with the community Hebrew school as a madrich last year. Max is helping out with the music program on Sundays now, and they're all involved. Well, Ben just graduated and he's in college now, but they've all done and are currently involved in the Epstein School of Jewish Studies as well. So they're all teenagers and have continued their Jewish journey over the years since we've been involved at Temple Concord. They all had their bar mitzvahs, and we've really found our place at Temple Concord. It's been really nice to be a part of the community.
Right, and it's a lovely community. I have found too that people are so warm and so welcoming. The moment that you walk in the door, did you sort of get that same feeling as well from the congregation?
I did. I absolutely did. It was, I think, the first Shabbat service that I went to at Temple Concord. I got teary-eyed because I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like home. Like this feels like my childhood, and it feels like I belong here. This feels so comfortable to me. And I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about it because I didn't really know if I was going to feel that way. And so it's almost a surprise to me. And I feel like, my husband feels the same way too. Lenny loves Temple Concord and all the things that it has brought to our family. And so we couldn't be more happy being a part of the community in so many ways.
We're so glad to have you guys, and we're so fortunate to have your family as part of the congregation. If you were to speak to someone who might be unaffiliated in our community, what would your message to them be? What would you want them to know about what Temple Concord has meant to you and your family?
Well, that's a great question. I think that I would want to tell them to that Temple Concord is so welcoming and so open-minded and so open-armed. I mean, they do welcome everyone, and their stance on, just inclusivity is just so beautiful. And it's always made us feel like we were at home, but I know that other people have said the same thing. It's just such a warm environment, and when you go there, you really feel the joy and the love that kind of exudes from the clergy and the community.
Yeah, that's true. I'm hoping maybe you might be able to sing us out of this little interview here. I see that you have your guitar behind you.
Oh, you did not warn me of this.
I did not. No, I'm putting you right on the spot, but I know that you're a pro and that you could handle it. Could you grab your guitar and could we maybe play a little, in the spirit of hello everybody, maybe hello Temple Concord, or I'm sure you could come up with some fun rendition, right?
Sure, yeah. Sure, let's see. Hello, Temple Concord, so glad to see you. Hello, Temple Concord, I'm so glad to see you.
That was beautiful. Miss Rebecca, thank you so very much.
Oh gosh, my pleasure. It was so fun to talk to you, and thanks for honoring me with hearing my story.
That's right. Happy New Year to you. Happy, healthy New Year to you and your family.
Same to you, Megan. Shana Tova.
So see, there you go. She is ever so talented.
Wow, and you got her to play too. That was great.
Did. Yeah. It was pretty beautiful. Yeah, it was really, really such a pleasure, I have to tell you, Rabbi, to talk to our three honorees, as we could say, here today, Chucky Holstein, Steve Belinsky, and Rebecca Opatisano. They're fantastic members of our congregation and the greater Syracuse community.
Thank you for doing it, Meg. Being able to celebrate each of them and to learn from their journeys is a treat, and it's also powerful on Yom Kippur, as we consider who we've been and who we want to be, to see these wonderful models and examples in front of us. My hope is that we continue this for years and years to come, that someday when we're in person again, that we can do this actually in person and have people share in a room filled with other people. And until then, we'll use technology as best we can. But thank you for bringing these stories to us and for helping make this vision a reality.
Oh, thank you for inviting me to be part of it. It was wonderful. It was so fun to learn about these three amazing people in our congregation. And, I know that we have so many other wonderful stories amongst our congregants and their families. And I really look forward to hearing more of them in the future.
Same here. Same here.